Hi guys, what is going on? Alex from Exiles Yu-Gi-Oh here. Today I have got a new deck profile for you guys. So as you guys know, the Super League did not work, but these Ultra Athletes are kind of in a league of their own. Bit of a shit joke there, I know, but let's go into the video. So I have to just mention quickly that UAs is a deck that actually means quite a lot to me. After I finished college, I came out not really being able to afford anything. This is back in like 2016 when I was like 17 years old. I couldn't really afford a good deck, and UAs I tried out online because my friend said they were pretty fun to use, and I actually really liked the deck. In general, I was a sport and exercise science student, so sports means a lot to me, and guess what UA is? It's sports. So today I'm going to be going over this deck profile for you. So this is actually a really fun casual deck, and I actually rebought this deck recently and just been trying it out, playing around with it. It's actually so much fun, and apart from a couple of cards in here, I built the deck for about £15. So this deck is extremely cheap to buy. Pretty much all the cards in here are commons, rares, and pretty much super, but that is all it is. The deck is extremely simple. It's really fun to play. Without further ado, let's go into it. So this does include some of the new support. So we are playing 3 copies of U.A Libero Striker. Spiker, sorry. This card is absolutely insane. I just find that Libero Spiker is really, really good. So the whole thing that UA monsters have is they practically all have the exact same effect, where you can pick up the card when it's on the field and special summon down another UA monster. You can only do that once per turn, but it's like a return to hand, special summon again. But Libero Striker does this in a sort of different fashion because of the fact that during your opponent's turn, you're actually able to return a monster that is in your hand, shuffle it into your deck, and special summon a UA monster from your deck, which is actually really, really insane, prior to the fact that some of these UA monsters are very, very powerful for what they can actually do. So we're playing 3 copies of Libero Spiker. Now, originally, you would be playing 3 copies of Midfielder, but now I'm dropping Midfielder to 2. The reason for why this is because of the fact that searching these UA monsters now is extremely easy in comparison to what they used to be. So Midfielder is an extremely important card, and the reason for why that is just for the fact that it just lets return to hand and special summon allows lets you do it during your opponent's turn. Sorry, I keep stuttering like nobody's business. What the heck's going on? Yeah, like you can just do it during your opponent's turn, so you feel like you're under less pressure than you actually are. And some of these cards, when they're special summoned, actually have extremely strong effects in general. We're playing 2 Dreadnought Dunker. This card is extremely important because of the fact that you want to OTK with this deck. This is a go second deck, by the way. You want to OTK with this deck, and basically whenever this card attacks, it also lets you destroy a monster on your opponent's side of the field as well. So you're basically getting 2 destroyers rather than just 1. And because of another card that we are using, we're going to be able to do even more damage than we actually should be doing. We're also playing 1 copy of Rival Rebounder. Now, this card isn't usually that good. This is basically a res card, and the reason why it's not exactly as good is because of the fact that the effect only kicks in when it's your opponent's turn. And basically, the effect is when you return when it's special summoned during your opponent's turn. You can basically special summon a UA monster from your graveyard. Remember, these all UA monsters have the exact same effect, where they can return themselves to the hand and special summon another one. So it's basically tag in, tag out. We're playing 2 copies of Perfect Ace. Perfect Ace is extremely good as well. It's basically a discard negate. Very, very powerful. And usually people only play 1, but I'm playing 2, and we're going to go into a reason for why that is afterwards. We're also playing 1 copy of UA Mighty Slugger. This card got dropped from practically every single UA deck, but not for mine. And the reason for why that is because, again, another card that we're going to go into further on into the deck. The card basically just says when you attack, your opponent can't respond to your attacks, which is pretty okay. but it's all about the levels a bit. And I'm just going to say that. So we're also playing 3 copies of the new beautiful UA player manager card. This card is so good. The fact that when you normal summon or special summon any UA monster, this card you can special summon this card straight away, and it can either negate the entire board apart from your UA monsters, or you can basically just target a card and destroy it on the field. Very powerful, especially for the fact that many decks will just completely shit on UA. I'd just like to remind everyone again, this is mainly a casual deck and not one that is to really be used as like a competitive one. Last thing we're playing is just 3 copies of Nibbles. Again, I don't really want to run hand traps in this deck. If you want to play like Ash or something like that instead of Nibiru, that's fine, but I wouldn't recommend putting many hand traps in this deck for the main reason that you just want to OTK and you want the game over as fast as possible. So going on to our spell cards. Spell cards is where it really gets spicy. We're going to be playing 3 copies of UA Stadium. This card has always been a 3 of in every single UA deck, and for good reasons. And the fact is, when you normal summon any UA monster, you basically just get a free search straight away. Bear in mind, the free search is not actually a hard once per turn either. So because of that, it just makes it extremely easy just to constantly search cards. In the past, I remember certain people using Brilliant Fusion in the deck and double summon just so you can get multiple searches. The problem with that, though, is it just creates a very inconsistent style of deck. You don't really want that to happen. So this card is just really good. I mean, the second effect of when you special summon of gaining 500 attack points, you don't really care about. I mean, yeah, it's okay, but you don't really care about that. It's all about that searching for when you normal summon. Very powerful. And the search isn't a hard once per turn, which is really cool. We're also playing 3 copies of the new beautiful UA Hyper Stadium. This is always treated as an FA for some reason, but Hyper Stadium is just a great card. So Hyper Stadium is basically just your rotor of the deck. This searches for any UA monster in the deck at all altogether, and is just overall just powerful as hell. You can also add back a UA Stadium from your graveyard to your hand as well, which is also really handy. But it's all about that effect where you can search everything as well. The best part, another thing that's really good as well, is the second effect where you're actually able to use an additional normal summon by paying 1,000 life points. This is actually really powerful for the main reason that it's actually not like one part of the turn, one effect per turn. So the whole thing with it is like you can say activate UA Stadium to put Hyper Stadium, sending UA Stadium to the graveyard, activating Hyper Stadium's effect to add back the UA Stadium to the graveyard from your graveyard, activate the effect which allows you to normal summon again, send the UA Hyper Stadium to the graveyard to activate the UA Stadium again, and because you've got the additional normal summon, you can normal summon the card in addition and get an additional search. So you can summon 2 times during your turn and get multiple searches off. It's very strong. Hopefully that made sense. We are also playing the one terraforming back in, I think it was 2017, when terraforming got limited. It was actually a really heavy hit to the deck because that was the only way you were able to search out the UA Stadium. And obviously the consistency after terraforming got limited was just terrible. So terraforming, we are playing 1 copy of, obviously. We're playing 2 copies of UA signing deal. This card is actually really interesting, and the reason for why I'm only playing 2 of it now in comparison is because of the fact that searching and summoning is extremely easy in this deck now in comparison to what it actually was. UA signing deal basically just special summons any UA monster from your deck, but you take 300 points of damage for the level of the card. It's okay. but it's actually really strong. Actually, I say it's okay. It's very strong, but because of the fact that you're paying cost on that and it's quite high, there are really, and Libero Spiker exists. You don't really need to max the card out. I think 2 copies is totally fine. The last card, one of the last cards that we are playing is Turnover Tactics. Turnover Tactics has to be probably one of the coolest cards and underrated cards in UA decks. Loads of UA decks actually have removed this card altogether, and I really just don't get why. The whole purpose of the card is to complete interference. The whole thing with the deck is it likes to go second. But if you're forced to go first and able to get to this card on first turn, it's really, really powerful. The whole thing with Turnover Tactics is you basically just get the opportunity to shuffle in everything on the floor. So imagine a Zeus, but shuffles in everything and is a little bit worse. So the whole thing with this though is that if you say shuffle, you shuffle monsters in up to the amount of you just shuffle monsters in, and for the amount of UA monsters that were shuffled in, you can special summon different UA monsters with different names, which is actually really good. So say I have a very aggressive board, and I've say got a manager and a Dreadnought Dunker on the field. I can activate Tactics, shuffle these 2 back into the deck, and potentially even get out something like a perfect ace, which just grants me a free negate on the field, which is just really, really strong. The real reason for why this is extremely good for interfering is the fact that when your opponent's going to be able to just summon stuff from the extra deck, you flip the card and it'll shuffle everything back. Your opponent will be able to summon monsters from their deck, but it's going to be a lot worse because the extra deck monsters might not even be there, or the main monsters that they want on the field are not going to be there anymore. It has to be with different names, which is just what makes the card extremely powerful. The last UA monster card we are playing in spell cards is UA Powered Jersey. This is the card that helps you go OTK, and the relationship that it has with Dreadnought Dunker is absolutely crazy. So the whole purpose of Powered Jersey is the fact that you get to make it so your every bit of damage that you deal is going to be doubled, which is absolutely insane. They also gain 1,000 additional attack points, and pretty much has the normal UA effect of, just in general. If say I have Dreadnought Dunker on the field and I equip Jersey, imagine wasn't able to OTK my opponent. I return the Dunker to my hand to say special summon a perfect ace. The Power Jersey actually comes back to my hand as well, which is so powerful. And because of the fact that that return cards, the return to hand happens, we don't actually need to play multiple copies. 1 is more than enough. And other cards, I swear to God, like over the years, this deck has received more and more support. We're playing 3 copies of Foolish Burial Goods. This card is so powerful in this deck. The relationship it has with Hyper Stadium as well is really good, because imagine you open a Hyper Stadium, you want to add a UA Stadium to your hand. Basically what you can do is send the UA Stadium to the graveyard, activate the Hyper Stadium, activating the effect to add back the UA Stadium to your hand. So basically you just get an endless amount of searches because of the fact that you're able to add things from your graveyard back to your hand. It's very strong. Going second, I felt that they're playing stuff like Kaijus was going to be a good thing. The only thing with playing Kaijus is it's not a good thing because they're just kind of trash in this sort of deck. So I'm playing multiple high level cards because of the fact that I'm also playing 3 copies of the Monarch Stormforth. In the beginning, when I first started playing the deck, I struggled with special summoning some of these high level monsters. So because of that, I main deck 3 copies of the Monarch Stormforth. And even though afterwards, after the new support came out, I actually am able to summon out these monsters easily, I still don't care. I want to tribute your cards because I can get rid of the most annoying pieces of dog shit on the field and replace it with a card that's going to be a sportsman, and he's pretty cool. So obviously this is just going to help us out so much, especially because we've got high level monsters. Also playing 1 copy of Reinforcements of the Army. Of course, Spiker and all the UA monsters are Warrior. Now, I know I said this is budget, but I'm also playing 3 copies of Pot of Extravagance. If you don't have access to Pot of Extravagance, don't worry, it's not the end of the world. Just because I don't use the extra deck, or I felt that when testing the deck, I wasn't going into the extra deck at all, I felt 3 Pot of Extravagance was really good. If you have, say, I don't know, Desires, for example, because we're playing multiple copies of pretty much every card, it doesn't actually matter. You can also play the Desires, you can play like Upstart Goblin, other cards, but like Extravagance is just the best one out of the lot. And then going into trap cards, the only trap card we are playing is 3 copies of UA Penalty Box. Now, Penalty Box is good either way. Personally, you don't always really want to search it. You don't really want to add it to hand. You tend to want to send it to the graveyard with Foolish Burial Goods. Because when you send it to the when you Foolish Burial Goods it, you can banish it and search for any UA spell card from the deck. But the first effect is actually pretty damn good, because if your opponent basically attacks, their monster gets banished till their second end phase. Their second end phase. Just let me just remind you that their second end phase. Their card goes for a long time. But usually that's never really going to happen, because you want to send this to the graveyard in general. If you are wanting to look at a side deck for this deck specifically, I would recommend using cards like Rivalry of Warlords and Goes and Match, for the main reason that all your monsters are Warrior and Earth. Apart from that, I wouldn't really recommend really using a side deck. I would actually play 3 copies of Evenly Match. I do have the card myself. I just didn't feel like playing Evenly Match was a good thing in this deck, because Nibiru did a lot more. I felt that when I was playing Nibiru, I was attributing all my opponent's monsters special summoning a token in defense mode. After that token got special summoned, the game was over. Pretty much over altogether. Double damage everywhere, piercing damage is insane. Like, this deck is extremely aggressive. The only thing with it is its 2 glass cannon to be competitive. This deck's grind game is a bit awkward. And can be stopped by combo decks. So I would only put this down as a casual deck, but if you really want a fun deck that you can make for about £20 or like $20 or something like that, this is a really fun deck for you. Anyway, my name's Alex from Exiles Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'll chat to you guys later. Peace.